Hello and welcome back to Parkitect. Something a little bit different today. We're doing a time lapse with a voiceover. You'll see that the little mini coaster's gone. Frankly, I came back to the game, had a look at it, and found it very boring, and I was incredibly unenthused by it. So we're going for a steel coaster instead, so a classic steel coaster with a couple of inversions. There seems to be a slight bug in the game at the moment where the intensity rating is pretty low. Like even this with sort of 3 or 4 inversions, some nice tight banked curves, and at the end of it there are people who still say they want something more intense. So at the moment at least, I think we can go a little bit wilder on the rides that we're building, and I just wasn't happy with the layout that the mini coaster makes available to you. So apologies for no videos from this game for the last few days. That's because it was the Planet Coaster Alpha Weekend, the Party in the Park weekend they called it. It gave you access to the current Alpha build for the weekend, and I put a couple of hours into that, which means I haven't had much time to play this or Roller Coaster Tycoon 2, but that's finished now until the beta. So here we are back in Parkitect. I was trying here to do a big helix down underneath the. There we go. I finally figured out how to do it. Oh no, but I go back, I think, because it isn't quite right, because I wanted to come back under this this big curve here, and I wasn't quite happy with how it worked out. The game has a bit of a sort of want to throw you underground. The slightest sort of movements at ground level, and it throws you under. And I suppose I could have used the terrain tool to edit that, but I didn't think, and instead thought, well, let's go underground, assuming it would increase the intensity a little anyway. But you can't actually go that very far underground. You'll see here I'm trying to get underneath. You can't actually go lower than maybe 2 meters, I think, underground. So I thought we'd do a nice big curve and then back up and finish off again. The other thing I tried to do with this coaster that I hadn't done previously is use block brakes. And block brakes, they're quite hard to say, but block brakes do pretty much what you expect them to do. They break the ride up into blocks, into sections, and that is the way that you get more coasters on the ride. There you go. You see there with the finish, we've got 4 coasters as opposed to the one you would have without block brakes. Then what happens is that when a coaster gets to a block brake, if the next section of the ride is clear, it carries on, and if it isn't, it will stop. And now really you don't want it to stop during a regular run of the ride. The idea is that if one of the coasters breaks down at some point, the ones behind it will all stop at the appropriate block brake. That's the idea, genuinely, of how they should work. You'll see here that I've got a slight problem with the... So the point is that roughly, in a regular run-through, each section has to be around the same length. So as that as one guy is leaving a section, the section behind it is clear for the next coaster to carry on. So when you first start running the ride, you'll see that they're all sort of spread around the ride, but once it starts running, it'll constantly flow around and won't stop people on the ride. You don't really want people to stop on the ride with regular running. So here's what I'm trying to do here, trying to figure out a few little bunny hops, last couple of little airtime hills as we go back into the coaster. It's a very common thing used in coasters, and it's basically a way of slowing the thing down and just getting it back into the station. You'll see we still have a problem here with the coasters stopping midway through the ride as the one comes in. So I think we pretty much just cut off that entire last section there and finish this one because it's taking too long to get to that final section, basically. So we finish it off here, like so. And that, I think, means we have 3 coasters, which isn't 4, but it's still okay. And once you'll see now that they start running, the only place they pause is at the back of the ride, just before they come back into the station, which I think is acceptable. That's something that happens quite a lot in actual rides. So we're checking the velocity here and the G-forces. There's a few little red points, but what I've noticed here is that the red points are relative. So they're not necessarily that they're too much, it's just that throughout the ride, they're the highest moments of G-force, as opposed to it being too much G-force. So we're just putting the entrance and exit in there, and changing the colours to match the line queue that we've got there. One thing I'm going to try and do with this series from now on is to theme a lot more. We've got this sort of basic entrance here with a couple of simple rides, and the park I'm going for here is a park that's developed over time. A lot like many parks in real life, they start with a couple of simple rides, not much theming, and slowly over the time as they get bigger, as money starts coming in, they reevaluate, they theme, they start theming areas. So that's probably what we're going to do here, even to the point where eventually we'll probably come back to these couple of rides at the start and re-theme them, or even replace them with something else. There's a new alpha out, it's Alpha 6 it is, and that has got a couple of new rides. It has a limb coaster, a launched coaster, that is, just building some terrain here to give the height of the ride a bit more interest, building a little mountain, and then we had some more foliage around as well. So yeah, the Alpha 6 it is, and it has bumper cars, which are quite cool. I've chucked those down in the corner. I didn't feel like that was worth filming though, because it literally is just dumping it there, and I just wanted to see what it looked like. I actually watched the live stream of the creation of that, it looked great. And there's a couple of new bits as well, but there you go, there's the build. Thanks very much for watching. We'll be back to some slower content, or perhaps you prefer these time lapses, and that's how we should do it from now on. Either way, I'd like to give us a like and let us know in the comments as to what you'd like to see next. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.